Turks. Got a little worked up in that last segment.
A little bit, yeah.
All right, and we're just getting started. What's next, John?
Okay, let's talk about Harvard. Who do Harvard students think is the biggest threat to world peace in the world right now? Is it ISIS, the Islamic State, or America, the great empire? Thankfully, we know now, because Campus Reform, which is a conservative organization, sent a reporter to Harvard, and then it was discussed on Fox's Outnumbered.
Check out what some Harvard students said. A reporter from the group Campus Reform posed that very question.
What is a greater threat to world peace, America or ISIS?
I think American imperialism and our protection of oil interests in the Middle East are destabilizing the region and allowing groups like ISIS to gain power.
As a Western civilization, we're to blame for a lot of the problems that we're facing now. I don't think anyone would argue that we didn't create the problem of ISIS ourselves.
We are, at some level, the cause of it.
The amount of spending that America has on causes of potential destruction in the world is really outlandish.
No, it's so outlandish. We have very big vocabulary the words of Cambridge. And apparently all of these students were reading Matt Damon's suggested reading list from Good Will Hunting.
No, I love that. I love that, man. They bathe in their stupidity. So we went and asked the smartest kids in the country. They all made really interesting points, and then we decided to laugh at them.
Outlandish.
Oh, yes. Oh, we're not as smart as you.
Like, by the way, the word that they criticize is outlandish. Kids can say outlandish. That's not a big vocabulary
It is
word.
at Fox News. It's the biggest word ever used in Fox News history. Okay, so you asked, and I mean, you could say it's a dumb question, you can say it's an interesting question, but they gave nuanced answers. They said, look, you have to consider what are the aims of our foreign policy and what are the consequences of our foreign policy. It is a good case to be made based on the stock prices of defense contractors like Halliburton, based on the stock prices of oil companies, that they did very well when we destabilized the Middle East. And now those guys give a lot of campaign donations. So maybe that was why we might have done it. And the consequences are that we open up a Pandora's box out of which arose something like ISIS.
Yeah.
So since
and Khorasan.
And if we hadn't done that, ISIS wouldn't even exist. So almost by definition, our actions created many bad outcomes, one of which is ISIS.
Yeah.
So the response to that very intelligent answer by a bunch of Harvard students is, you have high vocabulary.
You're acting outlandish right now. They had some. So you're a longtime political commentator and analyzer. I studied politics in graduate school. They, on the other hand, have a country music singer who's going to analyze this. So let's jump ahead to video 10.
Like I said, they're a threat to the gene pool. Anybody that says stuff like that. I mean, you're talking about America. Is America perfect? No, it's never been perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect country. But to sit there and say ISIS is less of a threat than America is. I mean, these are obviously kids that don't know somebody that's serving. They don't have anybody in their family that's ever taught them anything about this country and what the DNA of our country is about. And that if it wasn't for us, Hitler would be running Europe, the Germans would have Europe, and the Japanese would have everything else that was left over. Yeah. Had we not gone over and dropped hundreds of thousands of guys dying over there. These kids never had a granddaddy apparently like mine, and they never had a daddy like mine that said, that's the American flag, and let me show you how to do the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. So I don't understand. Those are a bunch of snot-nosed brats.
Come on, man. Don't do this to me. Don't make me do what I'm about to do. Look, we all do the Pledge of Allegiance. We did it when we were kids every day in school. The kids at Harvard did it when they were in high school.
Not enough.
No, my daddy and our daddy the flag. You're talking about the gene pool. This guy's talking about the gene pool.
Yeah.
This guy's talking about the gene pool. Okay.
He was wearing jeans.
Yeah, that's true. And he says they don't understand this country. So they don't know anyone who's serving. Yeah. But wait a minute. But that wasn't the question. The question wasn't like who's a worse person, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi or one of our Marines. Yeah. The question is.
That's a good question.
Okay. Right? Don't get him started. Okay. The question was about our foreign policy and the consequences of that foreign policy. Our troops did not set our foreign policy. They are the unwitting executors of that policy. If I, he said unwitting. Oh, gene pool. I mean, there's like a pool that at Fox News, in the center of Fox News, of ignorance. It's like bubbling over. It's like a cauldron of ignorance. And before
they
every
bathe
show,
you in it when you walk in.
Yeah, they have to jump in and then like bathe themselves in it and then come out and go, you're a deep pool.
Wow. So, look, we don't have time for it, unfortunately. But Kennedy, coming out of it after making fun of their vocabulary, she even admitted that there is like a logical train of thought that leads from an analysis of what America has done abroad that has led to ISIS. Now, the thing that's so shocking to me is in that, and in all the other foreign policy criticism that they have, Fox can't seem to decide if they don't like what Obama is doing or not. Because every day they go on the air and say whatever Obama is doing abroad is wrong. However he uses the U.S. military is wrong. His diplomacy is wrong. His foreign policy is wrong. Wait, you're criticizing what America's done abroad? You're anti-American, boy. You need to go back to school and salute the flag. Which is it?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Is America right abroad or wrong abroad? When you say that we're wrong abroad, you're patriotic. You wear a flag on your lapel. When the kids say we're wrong abroad, they're snot-nosed brats.
Now, I had a daddy that told me who the commander-in-chief is, okay?
Yeah.
Now, so you bow your head and you salute the commander-in-chief, okay? And don't do it with a latte in your hand, okay? So now understand, who's leading America right now? Barack Obama. I need a good, sharp salute from you, soldier.
Which is it?
Which is it?
Yeah.
And one final thing, when he talks about how we, and 10 tourists later talked about that too, we rebuilt our enemies. I know. You see, that's what made America great. That's why I love America. That's why I actively chose to become an American, right? Mm-hmm. But that's when we invested in other countries. See, what made America great was the Marshall Plan, right? Where we went into countries as small as Greece and Turkey, as large as Germany and Japan, as hostile. They were the frickin' Nazis. And we had just spilled so much blood and treasure fighting them, and the Japanese did Pearl Harbor. And then what did we do? We rebuilt their country and made them our top ally. Could you imagine after Al-Qaeda does 9/11, we go and we rebuild them into whichever country they were in, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, etc. Like, we rebuild them. We invest in their people, right? Come on, man. All we did was bomb the living crap out of them.
Exactly. That's the funny. I don't think that Andrea Tantaros, which I really wish that we could go to the video because I never want to pass up an opportunity to see her on film. But I don't think she was talking about the Marshall Plan. I think she was talking about recently that we rebuilt and we did nation building in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think she thinks what we did there was legitimately rebuilding them on the level of Japan. Which there's like a limited way you can think about it. Like at one point, Iraq had very little depleted uranium, but now we've invested its soil with a great deal of it. But other than that, we didn't do much investing. And we trade with them, she said. So when we come in and we take their oil, we're being economically beneficial and generous to them.
All right.
Okay. Want to jump ahead?
Yes.
Okay. So, Attorney Brad Schimmel is running for Wisconsin Attorney General right now. He wants that position, and he's catching some heat for things that he said recently in an interview and video about interracial marriage. Now, specifically here, the topic of same-sex marriage comes up, and they want to have a debate about what the role of the Attorney General is in challenging or enforcing the law. Let's take a look at this first clip.
How does Brad Schimmel personally feel about same-sex marriage?
Okay, I'm going to open up here by making something very clear.
Okay.
As I do my job as Attorney General, my personal view on that issue has no business entering into the equation. My job as the state's lawyer is to defend Wisconsin's law. My view is I favor traditional marriage, one man, one woman. That's my personal view in my personal life. And and that's how I voted when the marriage amendment was on the ballot. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't accept that people of same sex can be deeply in love with each other and committed to each other.
So a very diplomatic answer there. Now, they are going to now turn it from today, the same-sex marriage debate, to a few decades ago, the debate over interracial marriage. Let's look at how he responds to that little question.
Do you not worry, Brad, about being on what I'll call the wrong side of history on this issue? But if you had been Attorney General in, say, the 1950s in a state that did not allow interracial marriage, do you think the proper role of an Attorney General then was to not put himself or herself into the mix and say this is wrong? Even
Yeah, it is. And And I understand the argument.
Your
about,
job is to uphold the law, even if it's something that we might look back in the future as absurd or something.
Well, it might be distasteful to me.
Okay.
But
right. I appreciate your answer.
I've got to stay consistent with that as the state's lawyer. It's not my job to pick and choose.
Okay, first I have to note that I have a new favorite television program, Eye on Oshkosh.
It's not bad.
I'm glad to see
Coming
public
soon to
access.
the TYT network.
Yeah, no, I like the public access still around. Eye on Oshkosh sounds hilarious. Okay,
Yeah, but they had a good debate there.
And he asked a good question. So I don't blame the guy that much.
Yeah.
You know,
damn it! I wanted to draw a stark comparison between us two on this one, but yeah, I can sort of understand what he's saying. Obviously, it's distasteful, but you could say it's sort of a gotcha question. I mean, he's making clear that he thinks that his role is not to be a lawmaker; it's to be an executor of the law. I think that it would be nice if he showed a little bit of bravery, a little bit of courage. That would be good in all of our public servants. And to say that you would be willing to lose your position to stand up for what you think is right, I think would be nice, and it would probably win some votes for you. But he is saying that he would just do his duty. It's hard to really see how he's wrong there.
Yeah, because think about it. Do you want the Attorney General who's pro-life to strictly do pro-life things, even if the people of that state have passed pro-choice bills? Or the reverse, you have a pro-choice Attorney General, and it's a pro-life state, but he says, no, I don't care. I'm going to apply my personal views rather than the views of the state as adjudicated through the entire legislative process, right?
Let's do that.
So I think he makes a fair point. And so a gotcha question is tough. Like, to me, a real gotcha question is, when was the last time you beat your wife? Like what? Okay, or when did you stop beating your wife? Wait, I never beat my wife. So it's a question that you can ask, and it's a tough one, and it's not necessarily perfectly fair given the circumstances of today. But you know what? There's an argument to be made that it is fair, because it is like interracial marriage, like in that we are discriminating against a certain a group of Americans, and later, I'm sure all those people who are discriminating will be thoroughly embarrassed and pretend that they were on the other side.
Exactly. Yeah, we didn't, I brought it up earlier this week in a production meeting. We didn't have time to show it, but I saw a great chart from XKCD, which is a webcomic, but they do these great statistical visualizations. And they showed the levels of approval historically for interracial marriage and same-sex marriage. And it was extraordinary that it took more than 3 decades after interracial marriage was legal around the country for it to have majority support. And it's been majority support for same-sex marriage, and it's still not even legal around the country. So that shows how much more tolerant Americans are on this issue than they were historically on interracial marriage.
That's interesting. I mean, you remember the poll of Republican primary voters in Mississippi and Alabama in 2012, where over 20% in both states still thought that interracial marriage should be banned. Not gay marriage, interracial marriage in 2012.
Yeah.
I think it was over a quarter of Republicans in Mississippi.
Yeah, and almost every one of them routinely searches for interracial porn on the internet. So another weird statistical fact for you.
Maybe I can give you some of the divide you're looking for, I mean, just for the fun of it, because he's wrong. But, I mean, the reason they think this way is because there are states where they are implementing, now the only difference being as an attorney general versus, say, someone like the governor, like we're having in Texas, they are sweepingly doing things with abortion laws based on their beliefs. They were already put in place, allowing these centers to be there. So they're doing things like that that actually take away people's rights. And this guy, they want courage. We talked about the guy in Oklahoma. They want courage people to speak out against people doing things wrong. Why aren't Muslims, your Muslim friend down the street, come out and say, I despise ISIS, that's not like me. They want courage to come from those people, but they don't think they should have the courage to speak out to people who are being oppressed. So it only works on their side, is what I've noticed. Again, I get it as the Attorney General, it's not his place or his power to do it, but you got people all the time that are subverting people's rights as Americans for their own opinions.
Yeah, look, on the one hand, on the abortion issue, they all pass through the state legislatures. So in those particular states, so they, it's not like the governors did it on their own. But it is an interesting point that JR makes that, you know, they're willing to show courage when they're doing the wrong thing, right? Like, all right, I'm going to stand up to Obama. I don't think he's a citizen, or, you know, whatever it is, right? They're always like huffing and puffing and, you know, pounding their chest over that. When it comes to doing the right thing and saying, I'm going to protect all Americans' rights, I believe we're all protected the same under the Constitution, Like, well, that's a bridge too far.
Yeah. And by the way, I mean, there have been cases where that has happened recently, where a mayor, for instance, might start issuing same-sex marriage certificates, or a judge refuses to, uphold a ban on same-sex marriage, and we do give them a lot of credit here for that courage when it happens. He's declined to join that group.
Okay, I want to skip ahead because there's a couple stories I love. Okay. So let's go to Jon Stewart. The Pat Roberts story is super simple. You remember yesterday I told you he was losing by 10 in one poll, an NBC poll. There's now 2 polls that have him winning by 1 or 5. So that race is a toss-up.
Yeah, and his approval rating has shot up after his new round of Wall Street funded campaign ads.
I mean, look, the real issue there is that Orman was running 10 weeks worth of ads, and Pat Roberts had not got on the air with ads yet. He did a 2-week blast of ads, and all of a sudden he caught up. So that's the power of money in politics. They take the money and they brainwash you. They do marketing like Pepsi does, Coke does, etc. But even more insidious because, I don't think Coke's lying. They just say, drink our product, you'll be happy. Okay.
I have been happy after drinking it. So.
I mean, you know what you're getting with Coke, right?
Yeah.
But these guys lie about their opponents. They lie about their record. It's that's what the money buys you. And what it's bought them is a tied race.
Yeah.
Okay. Wolf-pack.com.
It's effective donations on his part. Okay, let's talk about Jon Stewart a little bit. Chuck Todd is the new host, still the fresh host of Meet the Press on NBC. But if they had had their way, they wanted to go in a very different direction. NBC News' president spoke to Jon Stewart about the position and was willing to back the Brinks truck up, conjuring the image of an entire truck filled up with cash that they were willing to give the very popular host of The Daily Show if he would take over the role of host of Meet the Press.
So
that'd be a very different show.
Super interesting. One, I am surprised that they had the courage to make that offer, and I commend them for it, right? So there's a lot of times with these traditional news executives, TV executives, there's a lot to criticize, honestly, right? But here was somebody who was being forward-thinking, obviously outside the box.
Yeah.
And remember, Jon Stewart usually finishes, if not at the very top, certainly near the top in every poll done of who do you trust the most when it comes to news, even though they do satire, right?
More than MSNBC.
Right, and what's happening is that it's because the rest of the news industry has failed so gargantuanly that by comparison, Jon Stewart's satire program looks golden and he's intellectually honest, and everybody can see it, right? He criticizes Democrats, Republicans, etc., and he doesn't spare anybody. So I think it would have been a great show if Jon Stewart had taken it. Now, would I want him to stop doing The Daily Show? That's why they had to. You see what I'm saying? That's why they had to bring the Brinks truck full of money, because he'd have to stop The Daily Show to take the Meet the Press job. And that's tough. He probably does more good at The Daily Show than he would at Meet the Press. Like, in the old way of thinking is Meet the Press is so important. That's where we decide, what the right thing and the wrong thing to do for our nation is. Yeah, 78 years ago. Right?
Well, but if they had brought him on, they might well have shaken it up. It might have been a very different show, but it wouldn't be a show of the caliber of The Daily Show. I think, look, it's good to give them, I guess, a little bit of credit for being willing to go with a non-traditional pick. I personally think that they're just copying Fox, because apparently now there's this trend of picking up former MTV hosts to be on your shows. I think JR said that he's looking forward to next season, The Situation Room with Kurt Loder. I think that's going to be great. But yeah, I think it would have been a great show. It would have been a disaster, though, especially now that Stephen Colbert is about to leave the Colbert Report to do late night TV. If we didn't have either of them on, what the hell would we watch other than the Young Turks, of course?
So, that goes to the central point here, which is that I think The Daily Show sets the agenda in this country more than Meet the Press does, which is an amazing turn of events. And so, in 2 different ways. One, when Jon Stewart came out and made fun of the politicians for not funding the 9/11 rescue,
the first responders,
right? That literally changed the law. They were so embarrassed by that. And I've never seen a television show in the last 10 years have that much of an effect. That obviously, as The Daily Show on that issue. And they flipped right around and they funded it, okay, because they embarrassed them so much. And then number 2, what a lot of people in Washington are missing is that people under the age of 45, 35, right, they're influenced by who? Daily Show, Colbert Report,
and Amanda Bynes,
and online news, right? they're not influenced. Meet the Press.
Yeah.
Is there anyone under the age of, I'll be generous and say 55, anyone under the age of 55 watching Meet the Press?
Who like sits on the couch like waiting for it to come on, like with like popcorn in their lap?
No way,
Yeah.
no way, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay, people over the age of 55 are generally running the country now, okay? But one day, okay, you see how demographics works, the people that were influenced by The Daily Show and by online news will be running the country.
Yeah.
So in that regard, The Daily Show, I think, is so much more influential, even if it's not recognized as such, although it is in a lot of ways, and that's why they made him the offer, right?
Yeah.
So much more influential than an old school show like Meet the Press.
Yeah, almost as influential as us. The one final point that I want to make, though, I looked up, Meet the Press has been on since 1947, which is amazing. It's the longest running American broadcast show. But the final point I want to make about this is that I'm so glad that they did not get Jon Stewart, because the only result of this would not have been him bringing what's good about The Daily Show to NBC News. It would have just been the end of Jon Stewart as a person who matters in political media. Like, they see him as popular, and they think, oh, he must be popular because he makes jokes and he has puppets on his show. But that's not why Jon Stewart is popular. Jon Stewart is popular because he's not Chuck Todd. He's not one of the people that's normally on Meet the Press. He's not beholden to corporations and the politicians. But if he had come to Meet the Press, all of that good stuff about Jon Stewart and The Daily Show would have been dead. And he would have had to bow to NBC's corporate owners and contributors, the politicians that they want access to, in the same way that Chuck Todd would have been. He would have just been Chuck Todd, who occasionally does a Brooklyn accent and dances around on stage. That's about it.
Well, look, it's funny that I didn't think of that point, because that's kind of what happened to me, right? In the sense that, I'm nowhere near the level Jon Stewart is, and so he would have had more leverage and power, especially if they'd already paid him all that money.
He's not going to make fun of GE, though.
I know. But look, I know what happens inside a big corporation like, NBC, now Comcast, owned by Comcast. And they get you because you're popular online, or you're popular with young people, or you're popular on The Daily Show, etc. And then they say, stop doing all of that.
Yeah.
Okay. And like what they literally told me is act like a senator. I'm like, I didn't get 2 billion views online by acting like a senator.
Yeah.
I got it by kicking senators' asses, right? And they literally said, try to stay within the box. Literally, like, don't wave your arms too much.
Yeah.
Stylistically, who cares? But so, of course, the much more important things was substantively, like, be cool on the establishment, because they think they'd be okay with Jon Stewart until Jon Stewart. You don't even have to get to GE or Comcast or anything like that. The minute Jon Stewart does what he got him popular, and he calls out the bullshit of the Democrats and the Republicans. Yeah. They're gonna be like, whoa, wait, no, wait, we didn't mean that. We won't. First thing they'll say to him is, we won't be able to get them as guests.
Yeah.
Right? And that'll ruin the show. Now, that's part of the reason why they do that. There's much larger reasons of supporting the establishment. So it would have never worked in the first place. So Jon Stewart, as usual, made the right move by not accepting the deal.
Yeah.
Jon Stewart loves making fun of Lindsey Graham. And he does the whole I do declare, but he does it the right way. And with a great accent.
Oh, okay, great.
He licks his finger, then he rubs his nipples, and he's like, I do declare. And he insinuates that there is a gay bromance between Lindsey Graham and John McCain in their mutual love for all wars. That stuff is awesome. That's why he's popular.
They wouldn't allow
He can't
that.
do any of that on Meet the Press. And those guests would never come on. Even if NBC says, sure, go ahead, be Jon Stewart, they would not come on. Why go on and get screwed by Jon Stewart when they can go on somewhere else and just have softballs lobbed at them?
I can't believe that Jon Stewart just got credit for my I do declare. Can I not get love on my own program for a thing I've been saying for 12 fucking years?
I do declare for the English accent, which is wrong. He does for Southern accent, which is awesome.
Right. No, but that's what makes it funnier.
No, you don't get credit for that, and when they do our master graphics and sidebars, they get credit for it, not us. That's the way it is.
It is what it is. Anyway, we love Jon Stewart.
Yeah, he's great.
And we're glad he's still doing The Daily Show. Okay, we're out of time, which is a shame because we didn't get to the Pinky and the Ass story, let alone the Baton Rouge story. All right, anyway, John, great job, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay,
Sounds
so
good.
everybody come back. Anna's coming. Remember, you have a penis inside your vagina. You just don't know it. We'll prove it to you when we come back. That was a segment from Hour 1 of the show.
Now for the better hour, the second hour.
Drums. You can get the whole show on TYT-network.com. the Young Turks. All right, a couple of interesting tweets here before we get to the famous vagina story. Justice McNeil, if this were a black family, this is the one that was not a break-in, a foster kid gets pepper sprayed. If this were a black family with a white person, same situation. This is not white privilege. Focus on real problems, idiots. Okay.
Wait, what?
He's against us, and he thinks if it was a white foster kid in a black family's house, they would have done the same thing to him.
Really? Okay, I guess so. I don't know
right.
why. I don't know why people get so defensive about stories like this.
Yeah,
like, what are you worried about, dude?
But you're not the cop. You didn't do it. I don't know. Yeah, you're so right. Why do you get defensive? Really? Like
a white person is entering a home, not breaking into it, right? Literally entering a home through the side. You think the neighbors are going to call the cops on him?
Okay.
Really?
Okay. I mean, and let's say it's the whole neighborhood is black, right? Reverse the whole thing, right? The whole neighborhood's black, and you don't think the neighbor would have noticed the white guy as part of the family for all those months, right? And you think they would have said, "Oh my God, it's a white guy. Let's call the cops on him." Okay, I mean, come on, man. And the cops arrive and they see a white guy in a black family's home. Yes, then they would be like, "Wait, this is weird." That part is true, right? And then they would ask him, "What are you doing here?" And he'd say, "I'm a foster kid, whatever." And my guess is they would say, "Prove it." Instead of "Fuck you, paper spray, get the fuck down." Okay.
No, I don't know. Maybe he's right. I mean, all the statistics out there prove otherwise. Like, just look at stop and frisk. That's it. Just look at stop and frisk. And the number, I mean, I don't know. I don't even want to get into it. Let's just move on.
Okay. D-Bell, great point here. Unless good cops call out bad cops, they're all bad. I can go with the Fox News model, too. Excellent. If we were doing like Turk of the Day, I might give it to D-Bell on that point. What, did they write a letter saying all the bad cops are wrong? Like the same standard that you use for Muslims?
Yeah.
Well, if you didn't denounce them, I guess you're all, abusers and violent cops, and all the cops are bad. All the cops are bad. Okay? Sorry, you didn't write a letter. And then finally, A. Nail also might have gotten the Turk of the Day award because he says it's 6:30 a.m. and the first thing I do is watch #TYT Live. Now you might be thinking 6:30. Where in the world is it 6:30 a.m. right now?
Where is he?
#Jakarta.
Wow.
How you like them apples?
That's crazy.
God, I love this show and I love you guys. All right. Anyway. So, since we love you guys, now let's tell you about penises inside of vaginas.
Yeah, this story is a lot of fun. It goes back to the age-old debate about whether or not women have G-spots. Researchers are still trying to investigate whether or not a woman has a so-called G-spot. Now, that was a phrase that was coined back in the 1980s, the early 1980s, by a German researcher who said that there was a part of a woman's vagina, internally, obviously, where it was sensitive enough that if a penis repeatedly hit that spot, a woman would orgasm, right? Since then, researchers have been debating whether or not that's true. Now, the recent study has been published in the journal Clinical Anatomy, and the researcher who looked into this is Dr. Gail Saltz, and here's what she had to say. Like most things that are about sex, people get very hot and bothered on either end of this.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
But I really can't say from my clinical practice that I'm at all convinced that there is a G-spot, okay? She also says, I think that a lot of women are very frustrated trying to attain something that may not be attainable. So she's really concerned, right? Because the belief that there is a G-spot leads some women to believe that they can orgasm through intercourse, when in reality, it's much more likely that you'll orgasm through clitoral stimulation.
Right. Look, I've always been torn on the G-spot because everybody, like, you'll hear the things, oh, no, if you go to the left and to the right and then up and then a little down, okay, and then, like, people will be, like, in there with, the cave thing when you go down, in the mines, and, like, looking for it and stuff, and so I was always a little dubious. On the other hand, when they say you cannot achieve orgasm through intercourse, that's just not right. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm like...
Wait, if you can't achieve...
They're saying that the G-spot doesn't exist. Okay, but then they go on to say there is no such thing as...
orgasming through
intercourse.
Vaginal penetration, yes. Okay, so that is what they're saying in the study, which I think... Look, I think it's really questionable to have a blanket statement like that.
Yeah.
The truth is, there are some women who orgasm through intercourse, right? But I would say that for the vast majority of women who can orgasm, it's through stimulating the clitoris.
See, but I find that far more acceptable, what you said. I believe that to be the case, no question, right? I'm really dubious about this study. It's like a lot of it seemed like kind of your opinion, man.
Okay, yes. And to be fair, look, this is a long study that you have to pay for to read, and all of the...
This is a description of it.
This is a description of it, right? So I don't know what her methodology was in figuring this out. But here's more of the study that I can read to you guys. The so-called G-spot, a term that refers to a pleasurable spot located inside the vagina in the pelvic urethra, doesn't exist. Rather, every woman has the capacity to orgasm if her clitoris is stimulated. As such, the term vaginal orgasm is incorrect, and female orgasm should be used instead, they argue. So I think female orgasm is a fine term. Like, now we're having a debate about terminology, which is ridiculous, right? But women orgasm in all sorts of ways. We're built in different ways, right? We have the same anatomy, but we have certain things that turn us on. And also, I think that she's discounting the importance of the mental state of the woman, right? Because for men, I think it's much easier to orgasm physically, whatever, it's not a big deal. But for women, you have to be in the right mental state. For some women, the clitoris needs to be stimulated. For some women, they can orgasm through intercourse. I just don't like blanket statements when it comes to anatomy, because you don't know how every single person is built.
I'm going to go further. I think it's crazy to say women can't orgasm during intercourse. Unless the women I've been with are massive outliers and I happen to hit all the right women.
Or they're lying to you.
No, I know, but thousands and thousands of times. I mean, all like...
Really? Really, Jake?
No, not thousands of different women. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thousands of different times with a number of women, right? Like, I'd be exhausted by faking it that many times. Like, okay, here we go again. Yeah, you hit the spot just right. Oh boy, here I go. So that's a blanket statement that's unjustifiable.
Yeah.
That's crazy talk, right? So, but then it makes me discount the rest of the study.
So it's funny because there are two extreme sides in this, spectrum, right? So the people who believe that every woman has the G-spot, and then the side that says, no, the G-spot doesn't exist. When in reality, I think some women have it and some women don't, right? So someone had told me that every single woman can squirt, which I thought was, I went there.
Okay, here we are.
I went there. I've talked about this in the post-game show in more detail, but I thought it was fascinating. And I was like, that's not true. Only some women can do that. And he told me, no. Every woman has a spot that inside her where if it's stimulated repeatedly, she feels like she's about to urinate, when in reality, she's about to squirt. I wish there was another word for it, but that's what people call it, okay?
Right.
And so I started researching this, and there's like a number of YouTube videos, like how-to YouTube videos that use like digitized animation showing guys what they need to do to make a girl squirt. And it's super interesting, but I don't think that it works for every single woman. Again, that's another blanket statement.
Look, women's genitalia can oftentimes be not the easiest thing in the world to figure out because it varies greatly.
Yes.
With guys, there's one particular sensitive spot that is obvious, right? And you figure that out, congratulations, you've solved men, okay? Now, whereas with women, it's a little bit more complicated. And some have a labia that's larger and some don't, that exposes some things and leaves things unexposed, etc. So to make blanket statements about, no, I got this thing figured out, right? You hit this button and you hit that button and everything's great or nothing is great, is nonsense, okay? So now, having said that, the most interesting part of this is the picture that we want to show you guys. So the clitoris is now both inside your vagina and then some portion of it is exposed. It is like a penis, okay? It's just that you don't see most of it, okay? So there you have, females on the left side there, A, and then you have obviously penis on the right side there.
Right.
And so it comes from the same thing, right?
Yeah, so let me just make a quick point about that. That's the reason why the whole thing about stimulating the clitoris makes sense, right? Because if it's like a male penis, we know how to get a man off.
Right.
So you should know how to get a woman off based on her anatomy, based on what you saw in that picture.
Now, look, but a male penis is sensitive all around. It's just very sensitive in one place.
Right.
That's why, again, women might feel sensitive in other parts.
Yeah.
Right? And that could lead to different things, and that's why you shouldn't overgeneralize. But I'm not sure that people knew that there was a penis inside of every vagina.
I remember learning something about that in sex ed. Dude, California has great comprehensive sex ed because I learned a lot, you know, and I wish that every state had that. But yeah, I knew. I mean, I didn't realize just how similar it was in terms of like structure and everything, but it's amazing, yeah. And the way that genitalia is developed, you know, during what is it called? Pregnancy is really, really fascinating. So I want to tell you some information about that. So it's around 8 weeks where the genitalia starts developing for the fetus, right? So if you have the X and Y chromosome, you produce 2 different types of hormones. One is testosterone, which is obvious, and the other one is AMH. And that leads to the development of the penis and the scrotum. Now, the lack of testosterone and AMH leads to the development of the clitoris, urethra, vagina, and labia, right? So it isn't until 8 weeks that that kind of starts happening. It's really fascinating stuff.
We start all as, I mean, it's not exactly right.
As blobs.
Well, first of all, we are blobs, right? But it starts with the same matter, right? In the beginning, until the hormones come in, you're more of look like a female, right? That's really super rough because you don't look like much. It's 8 weeks, right? But then the penis develops because of the hormones, right? So our blank slate is actually a female, not a male, right? So Genesis is wrong. You did not get Eve from the rib of Adam. You actually got...
I thought that was true. It's weird.
If anything, you got Adam's penis from the rib of Eve. Okay.
Think about it.
Okay, or the vagina of Eve. And so that's why we have the same body parts, but formed differently.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when you think about it that way, it makes a lot more sense.
It's so interesting.
Isn't that great?
I love it, yeah.
Yeah. I love that story. Okay, we're out of time. All right, now everybody remember, if you don't watch the TYT documentary about TYT, it's mad as hell. It's excellent. We've seen it. It's a lot of fun. We're going to go again on November 6th in LA. Okay, that's premiere in LA. But you can also make it happen in your own hometown. In order to find out how and how to buy tickets as well, tytnetwork.com/madashell. You might have heard the Colbert Report is dead.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Colbert! Down goes Colbert! I'm told something about a promotion and David Letterman's job. Who cares? Okay, he's done with. Now, we celebrate this because I'm given to understand some of you used to watch Daily Show and Colbert Report on Hulu. Now, I got nothing but love for those guys. Keep watching The Daily Show. Am I not merciful? But get rid of that has-been Colbert and put in the Young Turks next to it, okay? So every morning, a little bit of Daily Show, a little bit of Young Turks. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying. Hulu.com/The Young Turks. Colbert. TYT sends its regards.